I want to first start with what makes you qualified to run for city council?
I've been a businessman uh, my entire adult life. I've been through ups and downs. Back in 2013, I had a business that was destroyed by a fire. I had to file bankruptcy. I lost my house. I lost my cars. I lost everything. I had to start all over again from nothing. And now I have a Napa Auto Care Center. I have 4 brand new tow trucks, doing very well. So I think in order to be a good businessman, you need to have your ups and downs. You need to have fails to learn from them. And I've had my share of fails, and thank God I've learned from them, and I've used them to my advantage. And the city of Toledo's it should be run like a business because it is just one big business.
One of the past run-ins you had with the law involved the operation of a strip club on Toledo's North End. Can you explain to voters what happened in your past, and should they be confident that you're going to be able to fulfill your duties as a city council member if elected?
Yeah, those were just minor violations. I was a member, a shareholder of a legitimate company. It was a legitimate company. I know it. A lot of people frown upon it, but at the end of the day, it was legitimate. I've been endorsed by the Toledo Police Patrolmen's Association. There's a lot of businesses like that that are publicly traded that people could have in their mutual funds and not even know it.
Who and what will you advocate for if you're elected to a city council seat at large?
Well, my number one priority is the city and the people of the city of Toledo. When my son was killed, the people of Toledo really stepped up. They showed us a lot. They showed us a lot of love, a lot of support, and this is a way of me giving back to the city of Toledo, and and hopefully be able to give them back.
What can you bring to the table for voters?
Just a lot of common sense, a lot of business knowledge, being open-minded. Um, I want to put together a coalition of different business people from different backgrounds. It'll be a volunteer thing that we could meet up once a month, pick their brains, and they could pick my brain, and hopefully get some knowledge from them. And for example, one issue that I seen the Toledo Blade wrote about was how the city wanted to spend $100 million on water meters, even though I believe $100 million could be spent elsewhere. But just to give you an example, as a businessman, I did some research. I contacted some people that I know that are in that industry. We can buy 127,000 water meters for around $15 million. And they want to contract Johnson Control, to do that job. Johnson Control isn't going to do the job. They're going to farm it out to another company, and they're going to make about 40–50% on it. So that's just one way that, if they went forward with something like that, if I was in city council, I could have saved the city, $60, $70 million, and I'm not even in a city council seat.
As the father of a slain Toledo police officer, and I am sorry for your loss, will you be an advocate for police reform legislation if Black Lives Matter activists were to bring it to your desk?
Absolutely. If it makes sense, I'm all for it. The more we take off police officers' plate and give them, time to do other things, I'm all for that. And I'll give you an example. I asked somebody, why aren't we sending them to EMS instead of to the police? Well, their answer to me was, usually the police officers, because they're out patrolling, they're the nearest one to that overdose. So instead of letting that person die, they're going to send whoever's closest to them. And it's usually the police. I had another senator. I went to the state house to testify on not defunding police in Columbus. And one of the senators asked me, well, are you open to, for instance, if a child's locked in a house, that we send somebody else? I said, of course, if it makes sense. But again, if there's a police officer that's near the scene and that could get to that child quicker instead of us waiting to send somebody else, what are we going to do? Are we not going to send the police for a child that's in a house by himself or herself? Or are we going to wait for a social worker? Nobody has brought me anything yet that's made any sense, but I'm totally open to anything that makes sense.
So some of the things that you have seen brought to you, what were some of those proposals?
Well, actually, those were the only two. I haven't heard of any other, nothing else yet. So I'm still waiting to, to hear more, but nobody's proposed anything else yet.
The city is dealing with issues relating to crime. What do you think needs to be done to reduce the amount of deadly shootings that have been happening in our city?
First of all, our police department is low. Our police presence on the street is low. The national average says you're supposed to have 3.5 police officers per 1,000 people. Even at that number, I think is a low number, because if you take out, Jaden, people that work in offices and that work in other departments that aren't patrolling the streets, your number is probably half. Toledo is currently at 2.2 police officers per 1,000 people. Now you take out the people that work in offices that aren't patrolling the street, you're probably at about 1.5 police officers per 1,000. That's one thing. I think our high crime areas need to be lit up even more. We need more street lights. We need to go around and see. There's a lot of trees that are overgrown that are covering street lights. With street lights, the elderly, the people of that community will feel safer. Maybe if they see a crime, they can report it with the proper description, maybe get a plate number. If our police officer on our call in that neighborhood, it'd be easier for them to find the suspect. We need more stuff for our juveniles to do. I don't know what we have right now or if it's currently closed because of COVID, but I just think we need to give our youth a little bit more. We need to light up our streets a little bit more, and our police presence is very low, believe it or not.
I'm wondering how much you think needs to be invested into youth programs, because a lot of these shootings have been taking place within our youth. So what needs to be invested into these programs to prevent another lost life too soon?
We could invest as much as we want into our youth, but it has to start at home. It has to start with the parents, making these children go to these programs, maybe dropping them off and making sure they stay there. Because we could open up all the youth centers that we want. If the parents aren't utilizing it and taking their children to these types of events, it's useless. So we need to make sure that it's going to be utilized. We need to make sure that the parents are taking advantage of it, to get their children, off the streets and doing something productive.
The coronavirus pandemic has forced small businesses to close because they're not making enough money to stay open. How can you contribute to the city's economic recovery?
Honestly, on that note, I would have to go by what the CDC recommends. I'm not an expert in that field, and I'm not going to claim to be. So really, whatever the CDC recommends is what I would go with.
Road repairs have been an issue for Toledo residents for years, and now they want more to happen on top of the repairs that have already been made. What do you think needs to happen to speed up our infrastructure repair process?
Well, first of all, the first time that the tax was passed for the roads, that money wasn't used for roads. They used it for other things. I don't know what those other things are yet. But, there's products out there that you can use for patching that's almost indestructible. There's mastic products that have rubber in it. I think the contracts need to be negotiated better. We need this, give the contracts to the proper companies that are offering the proper bid, that are able to finish the job in a efficient time, and we need to hold them accountable. So for instance, if they tell us, it's going to take 6 months to finish this area of roads, we need to hold the contractor accountable after 6 months if they're not, if they're not finished yet.
What do you think needs to happen to make sure the environment is sustainable for future Toledo residents?
Well, if I get on city council, I'm going to be spending a lot of time at the water division to educate myself on it. I think we need the water company is one of our main source of income, and we need to really send our smartest people there to make sure it's run efficiently, to make sure we're taking advantage of every nickel the city can make off the water company. I don't think that's happening right now. I don't think we have our smartest people in that department.
Toledo City Council candidate Tony Dia, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jaden.